Hi, gamers. Welcome back to Two Girls, One Game. I'm Cassie.
And I'm Alex.
All right. Would you like to tell them what it is we're discussing today?
Yes, indeed. Vanna White style. Today on our show, we will be we'll be reviewing these super massive games, in particular, hitting on their probably number one most popular big attention grabber game, Until Dawn, the Quarry, and the Series 1 games of the Dark Pictures Anthology games. Essentially, these are horror games. It's basically like you get to be a character in the horror movies. These are not like shooters, although there can be things where you have to aim occasionally. But overall, it's kind of like those choose your own story books that you had, especially if you were a kid. Some of those R.L. Stine the Goosebump ones and things. So good. So it's really fun. You get to kind of be within that. And it's definitely a game series that Cassie and I have had an incredible time playing. We have really, really enjoyed these. These can be the kinds of games that for some people are fun to play by yourself. But I would highly suggest, even if you're somebody that normally is a little scared of the horror game genre, it is such a good time with friends. I think this definitely is going to be an addition within our Fun with Friends types
Fun
of
with
videos.
friends.
FWF.
FWF.
It took me a little long.
P.S. If you're picking friends, make sure you pick a bunch of clowns to play with.
It helps. It helps. Like, you can get serious about it. You can compete with each other for some of these. Some of them, there's like enough characters that you each can get like two or so.
Mm-hmm.
The two of us with our two husbands, we usually do that, like two characters per person, and see who, if any of us, can make it to the end. There's about 1,000 different outcomes as far as who survives and who doesn't. You can end up with everyone alive, or zero of your people alive, or everything in between. But the overall story tends to stay the same. There's just some fun little bizarre moments in between that really make it or break it, especially if one of your friends decides to, I don't know, like shoot someone in the face in the middle of the game. So they are great, and we're going to hit on those. We have not, just to put it out there, we have not played through the entire season one just yet. There's two that we've kind of briefly touched on, but we're going to mostly hit on Until Dawn, The Quarry. Those are the two that are sort of similar, and then the Dark Pictures Anthology will be Man of Medan. We'll be hitting Little Hope and House of Ashes, and within those, we're going to specifically be talking about, one, the monster within the storyline, because every one of these has a monster. Two, we're going to be touching on the clues or like tips and tricks within it. There's some little hints that the games will give you. Some are better than others, more vague or super obvious than others, or just impossible to find. And then we're going to also be touching on just the overall story, if there were any noteworthy characters that we particularly wanted to throw out a window, and kind of jump off from that point. So we're going to start with Until Dawn, the first major game that got all that attention. Take it away, Cass.
How fun, ski. Here we are. So Until Dawn was my first true experience with these games. We had tried The Quarry previously. We were distracted. So I don't count that one. I count this as my first experience and my husband's first experience too. Where do I begin? I guess the monster. So, spoiler alert. We're putting it. So if you don't want to see it, you can fast forward now. The monster in this game is the Wendigo. One of my favorite stories of all time is the fact that going into this, I truly, genuinely had no idea that was the monster for this game. And because I purposely, I didn't read a thing about this because I wanted to go into it surprised, like, everything like that. So, like, maybe the first 5 minutes into the game, we're maybe like outside. Not even maybe. We're like outside. It was
like a 30-second period of time.
And we like come across this skull thing that's like hanging outside, and I'm like, oh, it's the Wendigo. And I was like dicking around, 100% dicking around. And Alex
I just sat there.
So the Wendigo. And Alex very, very coolly, and her husband as well, like totally covered it up. And I was like, okay, it's totally not that. Like it's too easy. I don't know, but anyway. So
it's
that
the
is
Wendigo.
It's the Wendigo. It looks nothing. I will say this: it looks nothing like what Wendigos of true lore look like.
Well, she would know. Also, she's.
I would know.
I'm
into this. I'm into these things, and its origin and how these. Well, it's really kind of like a pack of Wendigos that are running around eventually, whatever. But anyway, how they come about is it's through a very unique sort of point in the storyline that they add, which I really enjoyed. The storyline itself, and not having played all of the games that we're talking about, but having played a couple of them, I will say a trend that I'm seeing so far is that they are not like the most straightforward. They're like you're here, and then all of a sudden you're over here, and I think that makes it really engaging and interesting to a degree. But at the same time, if you're like screwing around with friends and you're not like super focused, after a while you could be like, hold on, wait a sec, what?
Yeah.
That also being said, over here we don't have a PlayStation. So when you go to join friends who have a PlayStation, and there are very sudden, shocking commands and things you are supposed to do, and you don't know what you're doing with the controller necessarily by heart, it can throw you off. But if anything, that adds to the fun, and also to the prospect of shooting somebody in the face when maybe you didn't necessarily mean to. Or did you? We just don't know.
I feel like it was semi-deep-seated in the soul.
Maybe so. I will, in terms of the characters for this game, I will preface this by saying there was not a single character that I was rooting for to survive when we were playing. Not one. Not a single character, except for this random dude that we came across, and we never really got an explanation for the guy because of the way we played it out. But that being said, except for us, we were rooting for like this dog that showed up, and we were like, yeah, this bad boy's gonna live. Yeah. But you didn't get to play him. Which
the dogs always anyway, the dog.
Yeah. So anyway, all the characters are relatively intolerable, and if anything, there were some that we were rooting for to die.
Oh, frequently.
We're not going to. Yeah, we're not going to touch that in terms of what that means about us as people. We will instead
need to go there.
We will instead keep moving on. Now, you may be wondering, Cassie and Alex, are there things in the game that give any kind of notion as to what you should do if you want to survive? Because I'll be real with you, the choices that you get to make time to time are pretty vague, and you're like, I really have no idea how the hell I can predict what the outcome of this is going to be. Other times you're like, I know this has to be the right choice to survive. It's very like mixed up. Per game, there are these different things. I think some games they call them mementos. Like in this one, I'm pretty sure they were little
clues,
totems,
generally speaking, clues. I suppose.
Yeah,
hints if you of some form,
whatever. They take different forms for the games, and they're like hidden as you're playing. So you really have to keep an eye out for shinies.
Shinies. Look for the shinies.
Look for the shinies. 100% look for the
objects.
Shinies.
Be an infant. You'll be fine.
We love the shiny objects. Be a raccoon. Be whatever it is you need to be to see the shiny things. When you picked up these things, it shows like a very short clip of something happening to some character at some point in the storyline, and you're like,
this is not helpful at all.
Sometimes you're like, okay, this is easy and I'm going to remember this. Other times it's like a 2-second thing that's like a very small detail, and you're like...
And it's super dark and you can't really even see it. And
it's murky, it's
weird.
Who is
that? What is this?
I will definitely admit that there were a number of occasions when the four of us were playing where like we saw something, we're like, we're going to remember that. And then we literally like never came across it, or we didn't realize that we had come across it. We were like, I don't know.
This is true.
I don't know.
This is
true. Overall, though, I would say I understand why this game got the level of hype that it did. It's great for people who love horror stuff. It's great for people who love these FWF, fun with friends, like types of games. It is kind of a very original concept, even though these sort of choose your adventure things have been around for a long time in nature. I haven't seen anything to this level. The graphics are outstanding. It's like very, very cinematic in nature. It's like very much like you are playing through a horror film, which is cool to be a part of that and help shape the story. So,
oh yeah, and we had Rami Malek in this one. Hayden Panettiere, I believe.
Yep.
There were others.
There were others.
Yeah, I can't remember their names.
And they make the characters look like them too in the game. So you like instantly know. You're like, this is Rami Malek. Like you just know it, and you're like, wow, that's kind of a cool twist.
Yeah, they basically filmed them doing it, essentially. It's like they got an acting movie gig, but they were in a game. So it's fun because you're just kind of picking the way you want to watch a horror movie play out, which is sweet.
And then you can play it, I don't know, 10 million times over and have a different outcome every time. So
this is true.
Big fan all around. Yeah, I mean,
True dat.
Side note, if I were an actress, I would totally pick doing this type of thing over a movie.
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me? I would love to be in a video game.
So fun.
I don't want to die all that often, but I mean, I feel like if you could die 17 different ways, it's pretty fun.
Kind of cool, kind of fun, kind of funky, kind of fresh. So, yeah, I mean, that's in sum what you can expect with Until Dawn. I would say if I were to rate it, I'd give it like an 8.5 out of 10, probably because I think they could really do with a more solid tutorial on the types of things that you can expect with a controller. At the same time, if you were to throw that in, it would take away some of the element of surprise, but you don't know when those things are going to jump up. So it'd be nice to have just like maybe a small little hint about that.
Yeah, they had one at the very beginning of this. I think they have one at the beginning of every game, but some of them are more
they're like weak
in depth than others.
Yeah.
And this was one where it was pretty much like sometimes you'll have to make a snap decision and then that's it.
That's it. It doesn't tell you what the snap decision like appears like, and you're like, okay, well.
Yeah.
So
true that.
Anywho, that's me. 8.5 out of 10. What would you rank that bad boy?
I would agree, actually. As much as like the story was kind of a little all over the place at times, I do think it fed into the fun of it because, if you had this like consistent through line, then they would never separate, which doesn't happen in horror movies or horror games. You must separate in order for things to go horribly wrong.
But of course.
I enjoyed it overall. Like if you're a fan of some of like the classic horror movies, like I Know What You Did Last Summer, like Scream. Or like, like any of these like Halloween, I think you'll enjoy it. The acting was really good. There were definitely things that I didn't see coming the first time around. There's a nice little fun couple of twists thrown in there, and if you don't know that it's the Wendigo, that's a twist in a way.
Spoiler alert again.
But it was definitely fun. I will say what I liked less about this one than the others, I believe, and I might be blanking, I think this one was one of the games where you have to just not move the controller at all when you're hiding. So you can choose to run or hide in these games at various points. If you want to hide, you basically have to just not move your controller at all, which sometimes is physically impossible to do, especially if you're alerted by the presence of that choice. So
true.
Just if you do get those and you play this game, just put your controller down on a table in front of you and then you're set to go. Otherwise, but you might do that and then you have to suddenly jump and climb something and die a horrible death. So I would say 8.5 is a solid choice overall. Enjoyed the acting, enjoyed the storyline. The monster was pretty good. It had a very clear weakness. I liked the overall way it tied into the story.
Yeah,
I just didn't love the totems, which is what they were in this. The totem hints were super vague, hard to see. You had to try and memorize which ones were which, and it just wasn't for me in that sense. I would have liked a more helpful hint.
Yeah, it would be nice for like a small little gimme, if you will.
Gimme.
A little gimme. So,
and then I guess moving on from that, we'll be hitting the Quarry next because I would kind of lump these two games together. If you liked Until Dawn, you will like the Quarry and vice versa. The Quarry is like the newer version. I actually played that first before any of the other games. And the Quarry was what got me into this whole series of like supermassive games and this style of gameplay.
Side note, every time you say supermassive, I hear that one Muse song that was in like Twilight and they're like supermassive. Every time.
It's perfect for this, isn't
every
it?
time. It's just a side note. Carry on.
Vampires and werewolves and spookiness to be galore.
Fits right in.
That's true indeed. Gonna have to put that in there, track it in.
Yep.
So the Quarry was like a fairly recent game. I ended up playing it with my husband around Halloween because we were looking for something spoopy to do. And it sounded intriguing. I have to say, I was researching a lot of people's reviews on these games because I wanted to think about some of the aspects that you forget if you haven't played one of these games in a year or two. and I'm surprised. It seems like the Quarry got a lot of bad rap from people.
Did it?
I love this game. I absolutely loved it. There were definitely some parts that were kind of stupid. It's probably the longest of all of the games, I would say, that I've played, by far, which might be part of it, that maybe at times it may lose people. But I love the actors. I think Brenda Song is in it from the Disney Channel back in our day. That dates us a little bit.
The one that played the one sister on that one show, which is the least helpful statement.
I know exactly. That's the one.
Ever made.
She played an airhead on one of those shows where she had no brain in her head, but I can't remember what.
Sofia Vergara was in the show. Matters not. When we edit it, we'll put it in here.
We'll think of it later.
We'll put it in. Yeah. So again, some nice names in this one too.
Yeah, great. Oh my God, David Arquette. Scream. I mean, this is another one of those absolute classic horror movie style stories where it's a bunch of kids go to camp and they're camp counselors, and whatever happens at the end of the summer when they're all stuck there, or at the beginning when they haven't started yet, that's what happens.
Shit goes wrong with the car.
Very
as you
Friday
can imagine.
the 13th-esque in its form initially. It definitely takes a turn, but it's a classic horror movie style. Same with Until Dawn, which was more of the bunch of kids go out to a cabin type retreat in the woods and ski for the weekend, and then everything just completely falls apart in a massive way.
Of course.
This, however, I will say there are so many moving pieces to it, and there's a lot of time jumps that I would just definitely advise stick with it. As Cassie said, it's one of our favorite things that you can play it with someone, but it is a time commitment. I mean, if you're going to play it with friends over the weekend, start on Friday and play till Sunday kind of a game. It's worth it, though, because it does build the story and develop the characters really well. And there's actually a lot of really awesome twists and turns. And if you are a classic horror movie fan like me and like Cassie, there are a few major horror movie stars that you'll recognize and know right away that were definitely just crushing it in their acting abilities and everything. It was great. So I will say there were a lot more, I think, scary, jump scares or super spooky moments in it. Not everyone feels that way, but I certainly do. It scared the living crap out of me, especially at the beginning, when you're just walking through the terrifying dark forest and you don't know what's about to happen. But the thing I also really enjoyed about it was the monster. These monsters always have one weakness in these games, typically, or at least a key weakness. And I found that they're often maybe different elements or different factors that they feed on, or things that they will avoid. So once you figure out what this monster is weak to, it becomes a lot easier to make proper choices, but you don't find out for sure until much closer to the end. And there's a lot of characters you can't count out. If you keep them alive in the first half of the game, you might think that they're gone, and they are not necessarily gone. So that's been a lot of fun. And the other point being the tips. The tips with this were, in my opinion, way more fun, but also a little bit traumatizing because it's too much decision making. You would have to work really hard to find tarot cards in this game. What I loved about it was there's this cut scene after each scene you'd play through, where this scary, terrifying old lady who has been in many spooky movies herself kind of goes to read your fortune and will give you a tip that's kind of vague. It doesn't show you a clip of what's going to happen like it does in some of the other games, but it's pretty clear. It's a very obvious type of, hey, take this general direction. Oh, if you're put in a precarious situation, take care of your friends type of a thing. And I really enjoyed that, but you basically can find hundreds of tarot cards, and you have to pick one of two. She'll lay them out in front of you if you found them both, or you could find none of them. They're hard to find, and you got to wander for a long time. So
they're really hard to find. Yeah,
that was a tough one. I think that this was another one of those games where you had to not move the controller when you're hiding. So that's just something to keep in mind. But overall, I really enjoyed this game. I would definitely give it a 9. If I gave Until Dawn an 8.5, I would give this game a 9 if you stick it out to the end.
Good for you. Okay.
It's a goodie.
Interesting. I didn't stick it out to the end. I cannot comment other than it was a little slow moving for me at the beginning. So if you're going to start with these games, I'd recommend starting with Until Dawn to get a feel for what before you bite off something as sizable as this.
Most def. All right, so we're going to move on to I'll cover Man of Medan briefly. It's the first one in the Dark Pictures anthology series. You kind of got a big idea of the general game stuff from us on the last two. So just to touch on the main 3 points for these guys. This is the first game in that. It's got some great actors within it. I believe the guy that plays Cyclops in one of the X-Men movies, isn't it? He's pretty good.
James Marsden? I don't know.
Maybe. I call him Bobby. Don't know why.
Okay, Bobby. Sure. Bobby's in it.
He's cool. Bobby in something.
Good old Bobby, yeah.
Oh, he might be Iceman. Anyway, he's got some sort of mutation Bobby. Thing going. But my gist with this was it was very quick, so that was a big benefit of it. Very quick, easy to play through with a friend. I think it only took us like a couple hours. It had a good overall storyline, definitely very different than the others. Not such a classic like horror movie concept. So it was something very fresh if you're looking to like change it up but still stick with that type of game. The main thing for me was the tips I felt like were way more useful and way more clear without giving away the farm. You find pictures like hanging on the walls throughout. And if you find them, it pretty much shows you like an obvious choice that you can make and whether or not it's the right or wrong one to make, which is great. You don't have as many of them. And there's not as much of that like in between advice stuff going on, but I liked that. And the overall story concept was good and the characters were solid. I think the monster concept within this, it's not mediocre. The overall story was kind of mediocre. You could kind of see some stuff coming, but it was an interesting little twist at the end. They definitely are trying to tell you in a way, though. So if you're one of those people that figures out the end of things, you'll know within like 10 minutes. And then we had the second one in the series, which was Little Hope.
Of which all of us feel these days. So, Little Hope. 2024, baby. So, Little Hope was my second foray into all this, the second one that I've played through all the way. Same with my husband. And this one was a blast. Again, I think I actually was rooting for the characters more this time around. They were cooler.
Yes.
They were cooler characters. And the story takes a very interesting direction. We all were having a hell of a time putting together what was going on. And at the end, it's a mega twist. Was I slightly let down by the twist? I got to be real. I think I might have been because it wasn't quite as supernatural as one would have expected from, I think, a game like this.
It is, but it's just not what you were. You were hoping for something else. I feel like they led you to believe something that you were like, oh, never mind.
They're like, psych. So it was interesting. We've got the guy with the eyebrows in this one, Will Poulter. You'll know I'm putting his picture here. Brows.
We are the Millers.
We are the Millers. The monsters in this game, it's
the thing that's trying to kill you.
The thing trying to kill you is actually, it's former versions of the characters. It's hard to explain without giving it all fully away. So maybe slight spoiler alert on that one, but there are many lives that these characters go through, and the former versions hunt you down in different ways, and they're very spooky booky looking.
Yeah, it's definitely it's like different for everybody. The monster, quote unquote, is like different for every character, which is fun. That was a very new, different aspect of things that I had not seen before. Yeah, and I enjoyed it.
It was a unique take. So the characters are much more tolerable. The monster is different. Finding the shinies in this game. First of all, there was one that we found early on. We spent we were thorough. We were thorough with this game. We spent the entire time looking for this gun. It was a hint about a gun. Couldn't find it. Never found it.
It doesn't exist. I'm convinced. It doesn't exist.
Maybe it's like a red herring. I have no idea. We could not for the life of us find this damn thing. Still, it was full of good laughs. And all around, I think for me, given that I was a little more practiced with the controls around it this time and everything, I felt more comfortable taking on this game. But at the same time, and yeah, there were definitely jump scares. Disclaimer: I've let out a little shriek during both of these games that I've played fully through. I have.
Jump
I'll own
scares
it.
exist in these
They
games.
do exist. So like,
They
wear your
exist.
Depends, wear your adult diapers,
Wrap
what
it
have
all
you.
up. Extra
Whatever
layers,
you need to get by, we don't judge.
Down.
Yeah.
Lay 2 tarps down.
Why not?
Get a bucket, whatever you need.
Yeah, whatever floats your boat. So, but for me, I think because of the plot twist at the end and everything, and not being quite what I had hoped for, and kind of what we were guided toward, I think I'd give this one perhaps like a 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. I would say, it's funny. I really enjoyed so many aspects of this one more than the others, but there was something at times that just felt like it was kind of losing momentum, or I mean, it was always kind of going pretty hard, actually, from the beginning of the game. Something about it, and it's hard to say what. I know this is a very big favorite for a lot of people, but I think the ending was kind of like which didn't bother me as much, but I definitely was hoping for a little more.
Yeah, it wasn't, I think the ending made it less spooky. While it was very clever, I was like, I really wanted the spook factor, man.
And I also feel like we just kind of figured out certain aspects of it within the first couple of seconds of the game. The 4 of us were talking. We tend to do that. We talk about things openly whilst we watch scary movies or play games. And I feel like within like 2 minutes, we were like, okay, so here's what's happening. We were definitely way off for a bit, but you kind of have a solid idea of what's happening.
And I will add this: solid characters to mock in this one, if you like making fun of characters.
So good.
Especially the little girl. She was a whole lot of fun to make fun of. Also, when everybody's just like a pilgrim for a hot second. Also a lot of fun. Spoilers galore, or maybe not. You don't know. Whatever. But anyway, yeah. Between the 2 that I've completed so far, I would rank Until Dawn slightly higher, but still thoroughly enjoyed Little Hope. And I can't wait to try the Quarry again and actually play it all the way through, hopefully, sometime soon.
It's definitely worth it. The decisions can change things a bit more substantially too, which I find fun. I feel like the more that a decision changes the outcome of the game overall, the more fun it can be. That being said, there are 2 others in the series, the Dark Pictures series. The next one being House of Ashes. I will be honest with you. We did not get through it, and it was considered, I think this is consistently rated like one of the best games that they've made.
Okay.
It's crazy. They say it's like the best game that they've made. A lot of people love this one above all others. It was one of their more recent ones. Obviously, it's kind of towards the end, but I think that Cassie, her husband, and I was visiting them. We tried starting it at one time, and I think after like 3 hours of playing the beginning of that game, we just kind of it didn't
like, we can't.
us.
Yeah.
There's a lot of downsides. It's about like a group of people, soldiers, I believe, fighting in Afghanistan. There's some sort of a ruins underground situation happening. It's got all the good track marks for a great movie, like that one movie that I can't remember the name of right now, but it is good.
Man, our memory has faded fast today.
It's gone. But it's a good one, and Deliver Us from Evil is what it's called. It's kind of got that similar beginning vibe, but then it just kind of, you go back, like way back in time, and then you're doing the soldier thing for a bit, and it takes a while to establish the horror movie aspect, whereas the other ones kind of, you're starting out in what feels like a horror movie already. And it kind of hits the ground running. This one, I think, takes a long time to establish. For great things, though. Sounds like the monsters are great. Sounds like the setting is great. The tips, I feel like, are very similar to the prior 2 in the Dark Pictures Anthology series. So a little bit more helpful, but still occasionally vague. And overall, we will give it another try. We'll see how that goes. And then the last one after that in the series, neither of us have played yet, but we will be playing it soon, is The Devil in Me. This is the 4th and final installment in that season 1. And it's got a great premise, I have to say. It's actually one of the ones I've been wanting to play the most and just never got around to it. But it's got the worst reviews of all of them that I've seen.
That's it. Okay.
Very confusing to me because this is basically about America's first serial killer, Henry Howard Holmes, and his hotel murder castle.
Ooh.
I believe it's like this concept where this like TV crew or movie crew comes in and tries to like, investigate and stuff. And then it obviously was going to go horribly wrong in some way. So love the premise, but heard not great things. I think it's maybe a combination of the monster involved and just kind of a lack of surprise, or maybe there's not as much of a twist involved there. It's a little more straightforward, but I intend to try it out, and we will keep you posted on how that goes. And then we'll keep on playing these games. I mean, these are a great time. If you have friends that you're actually physically in the room with and you want to sit down, give it a shot. Even if you're a little scared, usually you have fun with it. And it's not so bad.
You can make light of them for sure. And that's what we have for you today. So thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please feel free to check out some of our other videos. Please don't forget to subscribe. Tell your friends. And for now, we are saving our progress and
powering down.
Yeah.